Hey guys, welcome back to episode 10 of the Night Castle. I'm your host, Demetrius Montero, with my co host.
Matthew Feldman. Welcome back, guys.
And yeah, it's been quite a while since we've recorded the last episode. Uh, Thanksgiving break happened, uh, the last few weeks of school, finals, and then, Christmas break. So we've been a bit busy, but we've still been producing content daily on the website. So as long as you guys have been keeping up with us on the website, uh there's you still getting some content at least. But today we're going to talk about the transfer portal, guys who are coming in, and we'll kind of sprinkle in guys who have left when we talk about some of our favorite additions. And we're going to talk catch up on men's hoops. They upset Kansas, lost against Oklahoma State, and then won against Cincinnati Sunday. So we will also, do a little bit of catch up there just to keep you guys updated and, uh, kind of give y'all a little breakdown, a little analysis of what's been going on with both programs lately. So first, we're going to talk about the transfer portal. Transfer portal opened up on January 9th, and when the season ended, I think a week after, you started seeing a lot of players leave UCF, entering the transfer portal every day, every other day. And so you just saw a lot more losses than commitments, obviously, because the portal wasn't open. But the Knights started off the portal with a bang. And they've been pretty consistent throughout this week. We have the last couple days left. Portal closes on Friday. So there's still some stragglers who will come in, commit, sign with the team. But we're going to talk about who are some of our favorite additions. I'm going to focus more so on the defensive end. Matthew's going to focus on the offensive end. And let's start with yours, the offense, because that's what really kicked off the portal for the Knights. So, Matthew, who are some of your favorite additions on the transporter side for the offense?
Yeah, well, as you said, we had a lot of departures pretty early when the portal opened. All three quarterbacks, now four, with Davi Belfer entering, that took snaps last year, entered the portal. Um, so we knew we had needed to make a splash at that position, and I would say we did more than that. Alonzo Barnett the third, he is probably the best quarterback that we've had since I've been here that I can remember watching. He put up 2,800 yards and 23 touchdowns with his arm this year, and then added another 15 touchdowns with his legs. That's just what Scott Frost is looking to do. UCF has always been a dual threat quarterback type of school. We didn't have a lot of that last year with Taven. He had flashes at times, but Barnett seems to be a very dynamic runner. He's also, I saw an article that he is ultra competitive. He has that gene in him, which for a team that's struggling and a team that needs kind of a kick to get back to that competitive Power Five level that we're looking to be at, that's a big thing. He's a leader. It's his fifth year, so he's experienced. He's seen it all, and I mean his most important feat was that he played really well against Oregon in the college football playoff. He had 315 total yards, three scores, one with his leg, and they put up 34 on Oregon's defense, who the following week shut out Texas Tech. And we know how dominant Texas Tech was all season. They held them to 0 points while Barnett put up 34 on them. So I think that's a pretty cool sign for things to come. I also saw a clip of him when he was in that game. He did a little read option, handed it off, and he was a lead blocker for his running back, and he put a cornerback on his butt. And I like seeing stuff like that. That goes back to that competitive edge. But I think he's going to be great. I think he'll fit into our scheme well. And also, I don't know if this is a connection that they had, but we also got uh, Rocco Marriott from James Madison. He was originally committed there. I don't know if they knew each other prior to that. I don't know if they have any relationship, but it's pretty cool that he'll be able to learn from him, a guy that has been in that scheme, a guy that will, as I said, he has 5 years. This will be his fifth year of college football, so he has experience, and hopefully he can just pass the baton on to Marriott after this year.
That's your that's your only Favorite edition?
Well, that's the one. Uh, my second is Duke Watson from Louisville. He's a running back. He led college football in yards per carry as a freshman. He put up almost 9 per carry. For a UCF team that is losing basically all of its production in the backfield, this is a big get. Actually, right after we got him, I got a text from my friend who's a Louisville fan, and he texted me like, "Hey, y'all just got a stud." And he was telling me a little about him. From what I've seen, he's got breakaway speed. Once he hits that gap, it's bye bye, no catching him. And he also has ability in the receiving game. At it during his time at Louisville, which this past year as a sophomore he was limited by injury. He had 10 catches, 112 yards, and a touchdown. So he has that ability. That was basically all in his freshman year. I'm excited to see what he can do. But those two, that should be a formidable backfield for a UCF team that needs to have a better season offensively, especially with Scott Frost calling the plays. But I think those two fit his scheme really well.
Yeah, I agree. Being able to get a great quarterback in Alonzo Barnett the third to lead the charge, and then have another running back in, what was it, Duke Chambers, right?
Duke Watson, yep.
Duke Watson. I'm thinking about Landon Chambers. So, Duke Watson able to have another running back in him, and I also talk about Landon Chambers because I mentioned him, but he was one of the first early running back pickups for the Knights, and so now you have another duo running back tandem to kind of replace that production from Miles Montgomery and Jaden Nixon. So it's good that offensively, the Knights have had a really good start in the transfer portal. They've also had a really good start defensively. They've also had some really good pickups, and some of my favorite pickups. First, I'll start with Jalen Duffy, coming from North Dakota State. He's a defensive back, and what's the most important thing about getting Duffy in the portal was Will Johnson is the newly hired defensive backs coach for the Knights, and he came from North Dakota State. So you were able to get a player who played under Johnson, and he has 2 years of eligibility remaining. So he's able to come in, be a impact player for the Knights in the defensive back room, which is one of the positions that had a little bit more retention. So he may not be a starter, but to still be, a quality backup if need be, or a starter if injuries happen and you need to step up when if Braden Marshall gets injured or Jaden Bellamy gets injured, guys like that. You do need depth, and it's never bad to have too much depth because just in case anything happens, you have a guy who could be an immediate impact player and step up. So he was all Missouri Valley Football Conference second team this past season. He also won a championship with the Bison. Uh, it was Will Johnson's first year with the team, so it would be 2023, I believe. So, he comes in, he's not only going to bring, a little bit of potential, but he's also going to bring some championship experience, which is something that the Knights need as well, especially if you want to be a contender in the Big 12 coming off a 5-7 season. If you want to make a bowl game, you have a player who has been in that kind of playoff environment, and if you can have a really good season and potentially see if you can get yourself into uh, the college football playoffs. It's good to have a guy who has that kind of experience in a high leverage setting. So that's one guy that he's the first off my list is Jalen Duffy. Another one is Jaleel Colbreth from Old Dominion. He's a linebacker. He has 1 year eligibility remaining. But what really stood out to me is he had an amazing season: 71 tackles, 9 tackles for a loss, and 3 sacks. Cole Kozlowski was a really good linebacker for UCF in his time. He was, another 1 year guy. So you get Colbreth, who comes into the defense and kind of replaces Kozlowski because he's kind of in the same position. So you get another immediate impact player in that linebacker core, and that's what you're going to need. You're going to need a guy who can get a lot of tackles, be able to stop a running back from getting an extra 3 yards, blow up a short pass over the middle, a slant or a drag. Just be able to get a guy who can make impact plays in those positions. And if you're going to send pressure, be able to also have a guy who can get sacks because that's what you need. So it's good to have another guy that will be a high impact player. And then my third player, he's more of an honorable mention because there's not a lot of film on him yet. But LaJesse Harold, he's from Florida State. He has 4 years eligibility remaining. He redshirted this past season. And although there's not much film on him yet, what really surprises me with him is how much time he has left, and Coach Frost is talking about wanting to build players, wanting to develop them. And a little tidbit is the new offensive line coach AJ Blazik posted on Twitter about his excitement with building and developing Kasiah Charlton and Amon Williams, who are the 2026 offensive line recruits. And he ended his post with a hashtag that is recruit, develop, retain. And that's something that Frost has talked about in his exit interviews and something he's talked about in early signing day. He wants guys he could develop. He wants guys he could retain. And Jesse Harold fits that mold. Now, if he can come in and be an immediate impact player, who knows? But the fact that you have a guy who's going to stay in the program for at least a couple years because he has those years remaining, you have the time to develop him. Alex Grinch has the time to do that. And if he could become a valuable player on the defensive line, then I think you really have a good gem. And I think that speaks a lot to what the Knights have done in the portal this in the past week and a half. Alonzo Barnett the third was the big name drop, but every other player is more like you may not know them, but it feels like they're targeting players with experience, some 1 year guys here, some guys with 2, maybe 3 years left, some guys they can develop as well. And, it speaks a lot to the vision Frost wants for his team and what he's laid out for the players who feel like they can come in and immediately contribute or feel like they can come in and actually be prioritized and developed. So I think the Knights have had a really good portal so far. They have 3 days left because the portal closes on Friday. So we will see if they can add any more, good additional talents to the team and, continue to round out, build depth, and uh, really push forward to being a bowl right now, a bowl team. I think that should be the goal next season is a
Mm,
bowl game. You missed the bowl game 2 years straight. Next season should be can you get 6 wins? If you can get 6 wins and get a bowl game, that's obviously progress. And then you build from there on. You build through multiple transaction windows to be a really good team. You don't just flip a team, from 1 year to the next. So I really like what the Knights have done this past, week and a half in the transfer portal. And yeah, anything else you want to add on, Matthew?
no, I mean, I think they're doing the right thing. I like what you said about uh, a variety of experience within the players that we're recruiting. I think it's important, especially today, to try to balance bringing in guys from the transfer portal and also bringing in guys that are young enough to develop over time. It's hard to retain talent these days, but if you pour in that time and they see the results, they're more likely to stay. Malachi Lawrence is a good example. He stayed all 4 years. He grew every year, and then his senior year, he was a first team All Big 12er. So, we've proved that we can develop talent. It's just about finding that piece, especially at the quarterback position, because that's been so shaky. And I think we did. So now it's just rounding out the kinks around him. But I would give the portal grade a high B, maybe like an A minus. But I like what they've done.
Yeah, I do too. And to kind of close on that topic and, now transition to men's hoops, which has been pretty eventful since our last episode. They had a pretty slow December, only 4 games. They won all four. So it was good to see them close out the year. I believe it was 11-1. And the first game of the new year, which is the first conference matchup to start Big 12 play, was against then number 17 Kansas and potential number one overall pick Darren Peterson. And the Knights could not have started off the new year any better. They could not have started off conference play any better. They ended up upsetting Kansas. It was a very close game, but the Knights held the lead throughout most of it. I think they posted something on Twitter where they had the lead for like 20 minutes
Yeah.
of the entire game. And to have that against a team that is an upper echelon defensive team in the Big 12, I think they hold teams under 65 points. Well, at that time, they were holding teams under 65 points. It's really just a testament to, how together the team plays on both ends of the floor. I know Dawkins, Coach Dawkins, he prioritizes and emphasizes defense, and you would like to be a defensive team like Kansas where you're not giving up more than 65 points. They were giving up 74, 75 points at the time. But I mean, they're playing together. They played together. They were able to get key defensive stops. I know Darren Peterson had an excellent first half. He was 23 points, but shaky second half because he didn't really play much. The situation was strange, but Melvin Council was able to step up in his absence and really make the game close. But Jordan Burks ended up hitting the I'm I'm gonna call it like a cushion three
Mm.
because it gave them a little bit more of a cushion to mess up in case something did happen, but it didn't. He made a really important three to kind of seal the game, and they started off Big 12 play 1-0 against Kansas, and that game earned them a number 25 ranking in the AP Top 25 poll. First time they were ranked since 2019, and then it all came falling down against Oklahoma State. So they had a really poor shooting game against Oklahoma State, which is very uncharacteristic for the Knights. Coming into that game, they were 50% from the field and 40% from three. So to have an uncharacteristic shooting game against Oklahoma State was really bad, really bad. But before we talk about Cincinnati, Matthew, what are your thoughts on that 2 game stretch against Kansas and then Oklahoma State? See UCF have a really good game against Kansas, and then the moment they're ranked, they're like they shrivel because they have a really bad shooting night.
Yeah. I mean, the Kansas win, obviously huge. It's kind of like deja vu with the court storming again. Um, that's a good Kansas team. As you said, Darren Peterson. I came back up for the game. He's the real deal. If I was the NBA team that gets the number one pick, I know who I would take. He can go. I don't know what's up with his injury status and all of his cramping and stuff, but when he's out there, he's elite. We did a much better job on him in the second half, like you said, in his limited minutes. I think he only scored one more three. Um, but it's more on us. I think our team has been very impressive. We talked about early on in the season our depth. Our depth has continued to shine. We have guys that can come in if a guy gets in foul trouble, and there's not much of a drop off. In years past, we haven't had that ability. So that's been huge. I want to give a shout out to Themis Folks. Themis has been balling. We talked about it early. He's our table setter. He's our facilitator. But he was struggling with turnovers, and he had said, multiple times in press conferences that that just comes with learning, comes with time. But now he's at a 7-3 assist to turnover ratio, which is really good. 7 assists per game is top 10 in the country. But he's been great. He's also super efficient. He shoots over 50% from the field. I think he's at 48% from three, and he's a good free throw shooter. So he's a consistent point guard, which is what you need, especially in college, for the slower paced possessions, the possessions that get broken down. He's able to kind of salvage those. Um, and we'll talk about him in the Cincinnati game as well. But Oklahoma State, that's a tough place to go and play. They have a double-digit win streak at home that they're riding. They're a good team. They have a lot of experience. They're kind of like us. They have older guards that know how to play. Their big guy, Fala, he gave us problems. He was kind of just lurking in the paint, and their guards found him, and he would hit his little flip shot or a hook. Um, we didn't really have an answer for him. But overall, I mean, I'm very pleased. Every March Madness projection has us firmly in the mix as an 8 or 9 seed, which is, would be the highest that we've ever been. Uh, and just seeing that and seeing that the team is fighting and that I think they're continuing to get better. They're also they're now 9-0 when leading at halftime. So that shows that they're able to maintain a lead, which in the past we've struggled with. Johnny Dawkins always talks about he wants 40 full minutes of game, not 20 good minutes, 30 good minutes, 40 good minutes, which is what we've been doing. As I said, Oklahoma State sucks, but can't win them all, and that was kind of one that we can lose and be okay with. That's a tough place to go play on the road, like I said. But we bounced back in our next game. Cincy, that was a much better shooting performance. We Mustafa Cham came back to town with the coach. That was a interesting affair. I don't know if you saw the video of the coach.
Yeah, I did.
But, uh, I think it's great that the fans are out there. That's that, and Dawkins talked about it. That's what college basketball is all about. You jeer. He said hiss. That's kind of what the fans are supposed to do. And shout out to Mustafa. I mean, he played a heck of a game. He had a career high, so good for him. But I'm glad that we came out with the win. And it all goes back to Themis Folks. He once again, when the play kind of looked dead, Riley Kugel didn't have anywhere to go. He kicked out, and Themis pulled up for that 15-foot floater to give us the lead. That was a big time shot. And then of course we get the stop on the other end, and that's a big win. Cincinnati, their record is 8-8, but they're not an 8-8 team. That's a good team. They've just had, I think, all four of their conference losses have been very close. That, and any Big 12 win, especially this year, it's a great win. It's going to come back if we're on the edge of a March Madness bid. Some of these mid-tier Big 12 teams could be the difference of us getting in and not. And then Riley Kugel continues to be our most consistent scorer. He had 19 against Cincinnati, combating Mustafa Cham's 24. But I think it's more important that he is playing such good defense. He's taking it upon himself to guard the other team's best guard, which it's always great to see your best player being able to do that, not running from the challenge. Yeah, I'm very impressed with our start.
Yeah, I would agree. And then to kind of piggyback off the Cincinnati game, when I was looking at the box score, it was a pretty impressive victory. Not because you overcame a Mustafa Chiam 24 points, but you won the rebounding battle and you were able to not send them to the free throw line, which is something that Johnny Dawkins emphasized after the Oklahoma State loss. He wanted the team to get back into form. He wanted the team to get back to doing what they were doing good throughout the season, which was defending the ball. I mean, defending without fouling and rebounding the ball. So they sent Cincinnati to the free throw line, I believe, eight times, and then won the rebounding battle 30-27. What's most impressive about winning the rebounding battle was you had UCF had 26 defensive rebounds, although Cincinnati had 10 offensive rebounds. I think getting 26 defensive rebounds, meaning if you do the math, which is kind of difficult because there's a lot of context within the game. At least, what was it? At least 10 or 16 of those possessions, you were able to get a single stop and get a rebound, secure the stop, and then move on with your possession. So Cincinnati had 67 shots. Oh, yikes. And UCF had 52. So Cincinnati had 15 more shots, 19 more possessions with 10 offensive rebounds and 9 steals. So the fact that you were able to get, some stops on those 15 possessions, and it really says a lot when you're able to look at that and go, yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why you won that game. I know you look and say, Bemis folks had that floater, and then you got that stop in those last possessions of the game. That matters, yes, but also everything that happened in the prior 39 minutes and 25 seconds, right?
Right.
So being able to get stops, being able to not foul and send them to the free throw line a bunch of times, that's what matters. And in a close game like that, when you need to pull it out and win, especially when in the next 2.5 weeks, UCF has a nasty gauntlet.
Yeah.
Nasty. I say it's a nasty gauntlet because you have number one Arizona, number two Iowa State, number 15 Texas Tech, and number 7 Houston. That's 4 top 15 ranked teams in the next 2.5 weeks. I'm not gonna say UCF can't win those games, but definitely the odds will be against them.
Hmm.
And so eh, I believe I know Colorado is one of those games that's sandwiched in between the ranked. You have to like win that Colorado game. It would be nice to get it upset on um the top, four of those top 15 teams. It would be nice to get it upset on one of them, but you have to be able to get those non-ranked victories in the Big 12. You have to be able to build on those because last season UCF did not have a good Big 12 record, and that played a big part as to why they didn't do well in the second half of the season.
Hmm.
So they have to be able to get, conference wins against teams that aren't necessarily ranked, but are still kind of good. And the Kansas State Wildcats, which is tomorrow's matchup on Wednesday, is that same situation. You mentioned Cincinnati, although they're 8-8, they're playing wise, they're not an 8-8 team. Record wise, they're 8-8, but in terms of play against other guys and other teams, they've had close losses. They're not necessarily an 8-8 team because of their talent or all of that, right? Kansas State has, as last time I checked, was the sixth leading scorer in the nation in PJ Haggerty. He is also leading them in assists at over 4.5 assists, so 4.6 assists a game, 22.9 points per game, almost 23, and is shooting 49.2% from the field. So he's a really good offensive player. Kansas State is also 9-7. So, that Cincinnati statement kind of holds true where they're record wise, they're 9-7, but playing wise, you have the sixth leading scorer in the nation. You have talent. It's clear that you have the talent to win some games, but you're just not putting it together consistently. And that's kind of what it is with Kansas State. I looked at their schedule and they rattled off a couple wins to start the season, then went on a little 3-4 game losing streak, came back, went on another 3-4 game winning streak, and now they're on a 3-game losing streak again, narrowly losing to Arizona State. I believe it was 87-84. So it's another situation where you look at the record and say Kansas State has struggled this season, and tomorrow's game for UCF should kind of be another game where they round back into form and continue to build on the good things that they do, defending without fouling and rebounding the ball. But just like that Cincinnati game one, it could be very close. It could be a very close game that comes down to the final 15 seconds, and you need another late game heroic bucket from Demas Folks or Riley Kugel, or just, in matter of fact, any offensive player on the team, to give you something to, win a game. And it's important to win these Big 12 games to have a good Big 12 record, especially when they will probably, drop a couple of those ranked games. Again, it would be nice to upset those ranked teams in the Big 12, but you definitely want to win, this Kansas State game, the Colorado game, games against Big 12 teams that aren't ranked.
Yeah.
So it's important to, have a good stretch, win tomorrow's game to be 3-1 in the Big 12, and then prepare for your hellish 2.5 week stretch.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough stretch. Arizona is going to be very tough to beat. I'm glad we're at home for that game because if we went on the road, that might get ugly. They've beaten everyone by double digits at home. They're the number one team for the reason. Um, and then Iowa State, same thing. They're they're lethal. They walked into Purdue earlier this year and beat them by 25, which is historically one of the toughest places to play. We have to go on the road for that one. So I think that one will be the hardest. I think Iowa State on the road of those four that you mentioned is the one that the odds are most stacked against us, we'll say. But like you said, we have to win these that are 50-50. That's what improves your seeding in March Madness. That's what gets you into March Madness. Yeah, but as far as tomorrow goes, it really starts and ends with PJ. If we can stop PJ Haggerty and get him uncomfortable, I think we'll be in a good spot to get it done. But going on the road in the Big 12 is hard, no matter who you play. You know, these guys can play. They paid him a lot of money to go to Kansas State from Memphis, and he's shown why. His numbers actually improve at home. He's 24 and a half points per game at home. He shoots, I think, 46% from three at home, which is a scorching number. So I think we need to run him off the line, force him to beat us with the dribble. We're also much more, we have some size on them. They play a lot of small ball. Their top 4 minutes per game are all guards, followed by 2 forwards. Their big man plays less than half of the game. So I think we need to hopefully John Bull's elbow is okay and he can go. But we need to, get the ball to our bigs, get their forwards and their big in foul trouble because that could, get some guys out there that don't usually see the floor. But I think that's where our advantage will be. PJ's going to be the best player on the court. That's what he does. He scores the ball. But if we can contain everyone else around him and, make it hard on him, make it, if he gets 20, it has to be a hard 20. It can't be 20 and he's dishing the ball and they're making shots and, we need to make it hard on him. But I think it's a great opportunity for a road win, build some confidence before, like you said, the 2.5 weeks of hell that are ahead of us. So, yeah, it'd be a big win. It would get us to 3-1 in the Big 12, which that's already a better start than last season. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and with that, that'll come the end of episode 10 for Knights Castle. I am your host, Demetrius Montero, and my co-host,
Matthew Feldman, thank you guys.
and we're the beat writers for the UCF basketball and UCF men's basketball and UCF football team. We produce content daily, write stories daily. So I will actually put the QR code up because I didn't say that in the first 2 minutes of the episode. But top left, you have the QR code. If you are watching on another device that isn't your phone, make sure you pull out your phone, scan the QR code, and it will send you to the UCF Roundtable website where you could read all of our stories. And as for right now, keep up with the Transfer Portal Tracker, where we will, update almost whenever, just to make sure you guys are updated on who comes in, who leaves. So, and there might be a couple, feature stories on some guys as well who are very important and, very good gets. So, make sure you join the UCF Roundtable community. Make community posts if you join. There may be something you see that you feel that is worth sharing with the UCF Roundtable. It could be a mildly fun fact that maybe we don't even know. Something you come around is like, oh, nice. Go ahead, post that in the community post. Interact with the UCF Roundtable. And last but not least, as every content creator does on the YouTube channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Turn on the bell so that you get notified whenever we drop new episodes. We're looking to drop new episodes Tuesdays and Thursdays. Um, get back into the groove of being consistent with this, especially since school started back up. So it's a little bit easier to be more consistent because there's a little bit more of a schedule. But again, make sure you guys like and subscribe, comment, show love, stay tapped in with us because we will keep you updated on almost everything that goes on around basketball and football. But yeah, that'll be it for episode 10. And we will see you episode 11. Peace.
See you guys.